Feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Now a moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
As the first in the nation New Hampshire primary approaches, both Governors Chris Christie and John Kasich have appeared to climb in the polls. But a new WMUR-CNN poll released just this week beats those narratives back into submission. Not only are they back at 6%, if they ever were any higher than 6%, their favorability is in decline and their unfavorability is on the rise. According to WMUR-CNN, Donald Trump continues to top the field in New Hampshire with 34% of likely Republican primary voters. Trump is followed by Cruz at 14%, Rubio at 10%, Bush at 10%, Senator Rand Paul at 6%, Christie and Kasich at 6%, Fiorina at 4%, Carson at 3%, and Huckabee at 1%. And there's nothing all that surprising about those numbers. What was surprising was that one of the questions asked primary voters who regularly read the Union Leader who they support. Trump came in first at 24%, Marco Rubio came in second at 19%, and Governor Bush came in third at 17%. If you'd forgotten, the Union Leader endorsed Governor Christie. New Hampshire House Democrat Catherine Rogers had introduced House Bill 1368, which would require proof of a qualified liability insurance policy before being able to legally purchase or own a firearm. The hearing, which was this week, produced overwhelming opposition. Overwhelming in this context is an understatement. We expect very much that this bill will die in committee and be buried on the floor of the House. The super slick 30-minute video produced by SAU 55 to sell the $4.6 million construction bond for the Hampstead Central School is now available on graniterock.com. You can check it out for yourself. Somewhere just after minute number 2, they actually tell people viewing it to support the vote for the bond for $4.6 million. This makes this something like electioneering, kind of like an expensive 30-minute piece of political theater that might show up in your mailbox like a big fat glossy mailer, except that it's video, and that it was probably paid for with taxpayer dollars by the Earl of Metzler and SAU 55. We have inquiries out to find out exactly what, if any, laws were broken and who will be held responsible. Don't forget to check out past episodes of Grok Talk every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time right here on graniterock.com. You can also listen on Spreaker.com. Podcast episodes are available on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. If you listen to us on The Rock, nhcr.com, you can also listen to past episodes every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Finally, yesterday was Wilbur Scoville's birthday. Scoville was a pharmacist who invented the Scoville scale for measuring the spiciness or hotness of peppers. Wilbur would have been 151.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk. 2, 1.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
All right, we're back. There's a huge snowstorm, and it's not here. Yay! Our apologies and condolences to those of you in the New York, D.C., New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, Maryland, and all those nice places who are getting screwed with snow like we did last year. So,
and special condolences to the people of New Jersey, whose governor, first of all, threatened to stay away, and then threatened to actually return. There's a wonderful tweet here. Yesterday's news was that Christie was going to keep on campaigning in New Hampshire over the weekend because he was in touch with all the appropriate people in New Jersey. That didn't go down too well. Wonderful tweet. So Christie's home state is in the bullseye of a blizzard, and he's staying in New Hampshire. Guess we're done criticizing Rubio's work ethic.
Very nice. Very
by
nice.
Tom Nichols.
All right, Jane Cormier is here today. She's our guest co-host. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
All right, good to have you here. And we do have guests coming on the show at 9:20. David Goethel, New Hampshire Fisherman. We're going to talk about the NOAA monitors and how fishermen are being forced to pay for those and the lawsuit that he is part of against the Department of Commerce. Max Abramson's due in, but he's having some problems getting here, so we'll hopefully have him in for a legislative update. If not, we'll do one on our own. And Rick Manning from Americans for Limited Government will be in to talk to us about property rights and some problems with HUD in Dubuque, Iowa, and which is now part of Chicago. So that's some of the stuff we have on tap. Of course, we have all the regular things that we talk about on a day-to-day basis. We'll talk about some local issues, some national issues. You can listen to this program live on GraniteGrok.com and at the Rock, NHCR.com. This also appears all week long. I don't know why I'm talking like that. From 9 to 11 a.m. on GraniteGrok.com and Speaker.com. We are rebroadcasting our programs every day. And if, that doesn't suit your needs, we are, of course, mobile, and you can listen at your convenience on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. So, as has been the custom the last couple weeks since we came back, I've been playing some audio or reading something and getting some reactions from some folks. And we're going to do that again because it's a good way to start some topics, and we never know where the discussion is going to go anyway, so we might as well start from somewhere. So, let me turn this off so I can turn this back on. And here we go. First soundbite, Rick Manning, who's going to be on later, was at the Caffeinated Thoughts. It was a little shindig they had in October, and he gave a little talk there, and these are a couple of clips from that talk. So here's the first one.
There is a cultural war. There's a war for the hearts and minds, but it's the same war that's been going on since Jesus Christ went to the cross. It's a war that we have to fight. It's a war we have to fight with love. It's a war we have to fight with directness. It's a war we have to fight with truth. Not everybody's going to accept that. But that's not the government's job. That's our job. The government's job is to get out of the way. The government's job is not to pick winners and losers from a religious perspective, where a Muslim who drives a truck can sue the trucking company because they don't want to drive alcohol and get a bunch of money from the federal government, and an Oregon baker who's a Christian baker doesn't want to bake a cake for somebody, ends up losing their business. That's government picking winners and losers between religious entities, and it's wrong.
Any thoughts, Jane?
Oh my goodness! Really, you're asking me that question?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, how true can words be? I mean, that is a reality that we're seeing all over the place. That the progressives would very much like to continue the myth that there's supposed to be a divide in religion and government and all that stuff. How about we just say that we let people deal with their religion and be, using their First Amendment where appropriate, and let the government go back to where it belongs and defend us and keep us safe, and let all this social intervention that they're doing, trying to, there's so many bad things going on right now with people that are afraid to speak what they believe or how they feel, and
That's right.
that is not going to. That's always a bad thing because it shuts down the First Amendment. It shuts down people being able to. If I'm a baker and I don't want to be participant in a gay marriage, and I do not want to make that cake, I should not lose my livelihood over that. I have a First Amendment right. Why is that thrown out the window in order to, what's that word they want? We have to be inclusive. There you go. Inclusive. Well, yeah. Well, you know what? We have rights that supersede, quote, being politically correct and inclusive. And our government should not be picking winners or losers. It's a disgrace.
Miguel.
No, I think that's absolutely right. I would say that's bang on target. Nearly as bang on target as the time Eric Erickson shot up the front page of the New York Times.
That was really nice.
Yeah. Seriously, absolutely government should have nothing to do with this. The only time government and religion will come into conflict is when Sharia law says you can beat your wife and fondle a neighbor.
When the story first came out about the Muslim truck drivers suing because they had to carry alcohol, my first response was, well, maybe Christian bakers should work out of the back of trucks of Muslim truck drivers. That way they, they'll have some protections. But it's very true. There is an obvious contradiction and hypocrisy there. One of Rick's themes in his talk at the Caffeinated Thoughts event was that a lot of this goes on and people don't get up, you don't get a pitchfork and torch event where everybody stands up and says, hey, why this and this while you're saying this, that sort of thing. So, it's like, waking people up and getting them to acknowledge, first of all, that these two things are facts and that they're diametrically opposed and the government is involved in both.
I love the way they use it. They use the government and religion thing. The progressives will use it whichever way they can to sort of bolster whatever it is their thing is at the moment, right? I mean, I would love to see what happens if I go to work, whether a church, whether working in a school or whatever, and I want to take time out to pray at a certain time of day. I wonder if my prayerful desire would be accommodated as a Christian.
No.
So why the hypocrisy here?
Or typically, hell no. You want to be a Muslim, you want to pray, that takes an hour out of your work day every day, then negotiate to be paid for a 7-day, for 7 out of your 8-hour day, and take the time.
Yeah.
But don't expect to be paid for 8 hours when you get time off and the other folks don't.
Yes, but if even take the hourly pay rate out. Okay?
Yeah.
The overall psychological thing of that is that, what are you, a crazy holy roller that you want to take an hour out of your day to pray? That's what the Christian would face.
Yes.
But see, we're afraid to say that about the Muslim, right? Because the Muslim, we have to respect. Well, respect it all.
Yeah.
It's not like Black Lives Matter, right? It's all lives matter.
So it's time we go back and say, what kind of nut are you that you can't put in an honest day's work? Pray at home, buddy.
There you go.
All right, here we go. Soundbite number 2.
When the federal government actually sues the little sisters of the poor, literally sues the little sisters of the poor, to force them to provide abortions and birth control against their religious convictions. The assault on basic freedoms is real. It's a real and present danger. What is even more distressing is that the nation as a whole is not rising up and denouncing these obvious breaches of our most basic liberties.
This sort of piggybacks on the last one. Actually, they all kind of piggyback on each other because they're from the same speech.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, right? We have big government bully that's going to tell us exactly how we should be living our life, what we should be doing, even going so far as to take this is a very small order of nuns. This is not like a huge, big organization, right? And this is nothing but a demonstrative attempt to put in the media how very powerful government is. Because even the little bitty nuns, that are going to try to stop this horrible mandate, supporting something that is their right to not support, they're going to try to force feed this and show the world how powerful the government is. Well, you can turn that picture around. What is wrong with this picture that our government could become so bloated and seeking power that they would take on a little religious order that desires not to fund abortion or contraception, whatever their
Can you imagine, just imagine before you answer, Mike, if they did this to a little Muslim group?
Ooh. Yeah, I think that would go over like a lead balloon.
Exactly. So yeah, let's think. What can we impose on mosques? Oh, that they should be forced to serve bacon to their patrons when they hold a charity event.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I mean,
or that the Muslim bakers should be forced to supply pork pies upon demand for the local synagogue.
There you go.
If they come by.
Yeah, there you go. Kind of funny, actually. Oops.
Actually, no, that's wrong because the synagogue wouldn't want pork pies. But you get the idea.
Yeah,
I get the idea. Yes.
You know, with
to the heathens and infidels.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. The whole irony of this thing, and it's a bad irony, unfortunately, is that the fact that we are not standing up and defending those that need defending shows how powerful the progressives have gotten in this country.
No, they own the media.
They own everything, and they own it to the point where we're not even comfortable anymore standing up and voicing and saying, hey, this is demonstratively wrong. Why are we passive here? We don't have to go out and be raving lunatics, but we should never be silent in face of tyranny like that. It's terrible.
It's really just the hypocrisy of it. It's the unbalancedness. I mean, it's not as if they're doing the same thing to everybody. There's no equality. There's no diversity. There's no, it's just all screwed up. All right, number 3.
Last Congress, Harry Reid led a drive to repeal the First Amendment, replacing it with language that would allow the federal government control over political speech. In fact, 49 Senate Democrats signed on to the repeal and replace of the First Amendment, and because of the efforts of Senator Cruz, Senator Lee, and a lot of other patriots, they were defeated.
So 49 Democrats.
Was Ayotte one?
Oh, Ayotte was probably one of those Democrats. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't surprise me at all. 49 Democrats in the U.S. Senate. That might be all of them.
I think it is all of them. And
tried
that's the point.
Yeah.
Thou shalt not speak evil of a politician. That's basically what it comes down to. Nor shall one speak evil of a precious little snowflake, whatever color that snowflake should happen to be.
This is a disgusting display of how progressive politicians take what is supposed to be our founding and stamp all over it, just trample it. And do it with a smile because they know better, right? They know better. Unfortunately, there are plenty of people in the progressive sector that believe that since we have talk radio and we have a couple of stations that arguably are conservative on cable, that somehow the balance has been shifting, and that because we have the ability to go out and change public opinion that's just so crazy, because we all know that the people that stand right are crazy. They actually will agree to subvert their own right to speak because of this progressive notion that the government can do it better or the government's going to take care of you. Just nuts.
It is pretty scary. I mean, when Obama was running for president, and we talked about the stormtroopers and the thought police and and silencing speech, and of course they've had they had Attack Watch, they had the Truth Squad, and then you have Democrats moving to limit speech, and they always try to say, well, it's money, but it's not. Attack Watch wasn't about money. The Truth Squad wasn't about money. That was about ratting on your neighbors.
Yes.
It was about becoming the Stasi.
Yes.
And spying on people.
Absolutely.
And because they weren't saying the right words and putting them in the right order.
And they're still doing it.
And they're still doing it. And it's exactly what we said would happen. And
this is exactly what we face if we allow government to get bigger and go down this road. Everybody says, reductio ad Hitlerium. You can't bring Hitler into the argument. Damn it! Where the government controls everything you own, it is fascism. Mm-hmm. When our government is going down that road, it is in danger of becoming a fascist government. Right. A fascist government is just a particular type of leftism. And it looks like, the crony capitalism or crony socialism, the corporatism, government getting into everything is exactly that. But let's go back to the other piece we were talking about there, about the government trying to impose on you what you should or should not do, or should not believe or speak. Right now, the usual suspects, meaning the spineless ones, are attacking Ted Cruz. Huckabee was the leading attacker here, for not being in defense of Christianity and marriage because he'd leave it to the states. Listen, the federal government should not be in the business of forcing abortion rules on all states. It should not be in the business of forcing.
I got to jump in here. You need to call David, and we're going to take a real quick break.
How you observe your religion, it should stay the hell out, and the states have the last word.
Right.
All right, we're going to call David Goethel, and you stay tuned. We'll be right back. This is Grok Talk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to Grok Talk. I'm Steve McDonald here with Jane Cormier and Mike Rogers. We come to you live almost every Saturday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can catch us streaming live on GraniteRock.com, NHCRTheRock.com, and this program is broadcast on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. Great day. It's not snowing here. It's always a great day when it's not snowing here. I think the gentleman on the phone would agree with me. David Goethel is with us. He is, and I have this really awesome bio to read, the owner and operator of the Ellen Diane, a 44-foot fishing trawler out of Hampton, New Hampshire. So this is a guy who really works for a living. He holds a BS in biology from Boston University, has worked at the New England Aquarium as a research biologist, served 2 terms on the New England Fishery Management Council, which is probably hours worth of fun stories to talk about, and is a member of the Yankee Fishermen's Cooperative. Good morning, David.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing terrific.
Good. So glad to have you on because we have talked about this story, and we don't really spend enough time on it. You had some good press lately, Wall Street Journal, a couple other places. I was poking around looking for things. When you, we only have 20 minutes, so I'll let you quickly frame what this issue is for us, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Okay, well, as you said, I'm a full-time commercial fisherman out of Hampton, New Hampshire, and currently the government puts monitors on our boats, and these people basically watch everything you do and collect biological information, economic information. You know, they ask you how much your lunch costs, things like that. You know, the government pays for them. And the government says it doesn't have the money anymore, and now it wants us to pay for them. And the charge is $710 for every day you go to work. They're not going to cover every trip, but they cover one trip out of 4. So, you know, once out of every 4 days, I will have to pay $710 to go to work. The way I liken it for listeners who might not know anything about fishing is imagine you drive down, you know, 95, 93, whatever, to go to work every day, and all of a sudden you had to pay $710 for your own personal state trooper to make sure you don't exceed the speed limit.
That's and this is in the face of other changes that have come along, where your ability to create revenue to offset these forced costs has also been reduced, correct?
That's right. In the last 4 years, I've had a 95% reduction in the amount of my principal species, which is Atlantic cod, that I'm allowed to catch. So, you know, my business revenue has been reduced greatly, and at the same time, from the other end now, they're trying to pile more cost onto us.
Are they trying to... David, this is Jane Cormier. I'm wondering, are they deliberately trying to put you guys out of business?
Well, I mean, you really have to ask yourself that. Their response is the usual, what I call government bureaucratic response. Yes, there'll be some pain and some people will be dislocated, but it's for the good of the world.
Yeah. Now, you have I saw an online video, and I think it was from 2012, 2013, where you were talking about the impact of this on local economies and basically fishing villages. How many fishermen have we lost? What's the impact of the economy just on the reduction in production?
Well, we've lost, since the start of this current management program, which is called Sectors, in 2010, we started with 23 active boats in New Hampshire. This past year, or this current year actually, we have 9. But that number is down from, in the early 2000s, we had approximately 100 vessels which participated in the fishery in New Hampshire.
Wow. Actually, here's a good question. One of our regular readers, and he wanted to know, and maybe you know the answer to this because you've been, obviously, being involved with the New England Fishery Management Council, having a foothold in the regulatory side of this as well as, being an actual fisherman. He wants to know if you know what the legal reasoning the government used when they mandated the public pay for a license to fish from the shore, an act that had previously been free from the inception of our country.
Actually, I do know the answer to that. They're trying to get a handle on how many people fish. They used to survey recreational fishermen, which was what your listener is, by randomly calling people in the phone book. So they had just as good a chance of getting a grandmother in Iowa as they did of getting somebody who lives near the shore and might actually fish. And from that, they determined how many fish were caught by the recreational side of the equation. Everybody complained about that because the number was wildly inaccurate. And they said, well, fine. The only way we can kind of narrow down the pool is to have people register to fish. And the $20 fee or whatever it is basically the administrative cost of creating that piece of paper.
Yeah,
so,
sure.
in other words, they're not making a profit on it, and it's run by the states. The downside of it being run by the states is that the licenses are only good in that state or perhaps in a neighboring state. So, for example, if you vacation in Florida, a license you buy in New Hampshire won't do you any good.
Yes, it probably costs more if you conceal your fishing rod, right? Just okay. So you are part of a, Cause for Action and Northeast Fishery Sector 13, which is a nonprofit that you're associated with. You guys are suing the Department of Commerce, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Where are you in this process? What do you think? How do you think it's going to turn out?
Well, I never handicap the outcome of a lawsuit because I'm usually wrong, but we had our first hearing in Concord on Thursday, and that hearing was for a preliminary injunction to enjoin the government from starting charging us for these observers. Currently, they claim they're going to run out of money on February 29th. They've pushed the date back, I think, 4 times this year. It started August 31st, and it keeps getting pushed back. But that's the latest date. So our hope is to have an injunction from the court that will enjoin them from charging people like me, because the day they start charging people like me is the day that I'm out of business.
Can I ask a question, David? When if that happens, what happens to the price of fish here in New Hampshire?
The price of fish is largely unaffected by local fisheries. Fish is a global commodity. That's been one of the great promises of these conservation NGOs is that if we radically restrict the amount of fish you're allowed to catch in the United States, that prices will go up and you'll make more money catching a lot less fish. And that has not happened at all. It's actually gone the other way. Yeah. Prices for us have gone down because we lose our infrastructure, and when we do bring in some fish, there's nobody to fillet them and move them to the market. So what will happen if we disappear is there'll just be more 747s arriving from Iceland and Norway and Russia carrying cod.
Amazing. Wow.
I just lost my train of thought. Oh, okay. I know where I was going. Sorry. I'm pretty sure, and you can tell me, that this is kind of a bipartisan issue. I have heard both Republicans and Democrats at the congressional level in the state of New Hampshire express alarm at this. Are you getting support from both sides of the aisle, and is this going to have any impact, do you think?
Yes, we are getting support from both sides of the aisle, not only in New Hampshire, but in the entire New England congressional delegation. They have sent several, I think it's 3 letters now, to NOAA Fisheries in the last year, signed by every congressional person in the coastal districts of New England to NOAA Fisheries, saying, first of all, find the money within your budget to solve this problem, and the other ones have been pretty much along the same lines, commanding them to do things. The response from NOAA has been very, quite frankly, if you boil it down, it just says no. They say our lawyers interpret the law differently, so apparently their lawyers are more important than Congress, and we're not doing what you say. So this is, an agency that, from my perspective, appears to be completely out of control.
Totally.
So they put the no in
NOAA.
NOAA.
Another one?
Yes, they put the no in NOAA.
They put the no in NOAA.
Favorite scene.
I bet they do. So you were a member of the New England Fishery Management Council for 2 terms, and this is kind of a regulatory agency. Tell us a little bit about what they do. Is there a benefit to their existence, or are they just another thorn in the fisherman's side?
No, the New England Fisheries Management Council, and there are 8 councils throughout the United States, broken up by region, is an advisory body to NOAA Fisheries. They create policy. NOAA Fisheries can accept it, or reject a specific portion for a specific legal reason. They cannot modify it because they don't like it. But it's still an advisory body. So it's not a government agency. It's, the people that are on the council are nominated by the governors of their respective states in New England, and then appointed by the Secretary of Commerce. But they're not government employees. They don't get, they get paid to go to the actual meetings, but the checks come from the New England Fisheries Management Council. They don't come from the United States Treasury.
That's good to know. Go ahead, Jim.
I have a question for you, David. Actually, 2 questions. So did the government tell you how they came up with the $700 plus fee that they're charging you? And do you think that this is part of a bigger picture that they're going to try to hit you for $700, but then, through the process, lowball it, try to get some money, by dropping it and making you feel like, well, at least they're not killing us at $700? Or do you think that they're just trying to knock you out, period?
How that number is derived is a great mystery. When I was on the council, and I was actually on it for 3 terms, we tried to get hard and fast numbers on this program for a number of years, and we got ranges. As best we could tell, the total cost of the program is about $1,200 per day. NOAA says they're going to pick up $500 for what they call their administrative side of it. And we're going to pay these for-profit companies. They're not part of the government. These are for-profit companies. We're going to pay them $700 a day. And when we ask, well, what does that $700 buy us? Because I talked to the individual observers on the boat, and most of them get paid between $16 and $20 an hour. That's a long ways from $700.
Amazing.
And the answer is, well, there's training, there's overhead, there's travel, there's the for-profit part of the profit in these companies, which nobody will disclose what that is. I don't know if it's 5%, 10%, 100%. But it doesn't matter. This is the contract. You have a choice. Sign the contract or don't fish. So to me, there's a very strong element of government coercion here. The government, holds its hands up and goes, "Oh, we're blameless. We don't, you don't have to sign this contract. It's purely voluntary." Well, if somebody tells you can't go to work or you sign the contract, I don't see how that's voluntary.
That is what they call a closed shop. That is what the right to work movement's about. It's purely illegal. And what if you decide you want to go fishing without one of these monitors? observers?
I can guarantee you the Coast Guard will be there in a matter of seconds. We have, in addition to this, we have what are called a vessel monitoring system on the boat that we pay for, that, again, is run by the government. It's like an ankle bracelet for the boat.
Scam. Oh, my gosh.
Even though none of us have ever done anything wrong.
Is it run off of a GPS?
It runs, it is a sealed unit that sends a signal to a satellite. The satellite sends a signal back to NOAA Fisheries Enforcement, and it knows exactly where that boat is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. My last trip out, I was boarded by the Coast Guard. I watched the cutter come right at me from, on my radar before I could even see the boat. And he came right to me. He pulled up, and he said, "We know you're ground fishing." And I said, "Yeah, I am. I'm registered to ground fish." And I said,
wow.
"But, what do you know?" He said, "Well, we know because we have the information from your satellite tracking system, and, I have to register before I leave the pier to ground fish. I have to send the government a signal that says I'm going fishing today." And they said, "We have that as well." So, they climbed in their raft, and over they came, and, Coast Guard has warrantless search on the ocean.
Lovely.
They went through the entire boat, and they had me all the net up. They measured the cod end, measured the fish, So, that's the question, is how much monitoring do we need here? I mean, we're already very heavily monitored.
Gosh,
is this, I mean, where's the fire? I mean, usually are there, like, all kinds of people out, like, fishing illegally, massively? Is it, I mean...
No.
No.
No, I mean, there's not even anybody left fishing, period.
That's
true.
true.
We had, in the, early 2000s, we had about 800 boats from North Carolina to Maine that fish for things like cod. Currently, there are less than 100. And we have, I bet we have as many Coast Guard boats as we have people fishing for cod.
Gosh,
in that
what a disgrace.
We're boarded by the Coast Guard. We're boarded by New Hampshire Fish and Game. We're met at the dock by New Hampshire Fish and Game, by uniformed NOAA agents, by plainclothes NOAA agents. It's almost Orwellian at this point.
Think how much we could reduce our taxes if we shut some of these down. I mean, what's wrong with a simple fishing license? You arrive back with your load of fish, and the law basically says that you can't offload your fish, or the processor's not allowed to take it if you're fishing illegally. So, in other words, why do we need all this Orwellian monitoring? Why not just a simple thing that says these are the rules for fishing? You have a simple license, and they police the fish at the point
the government said so.
At the point of offloading, if they need to do it at all.
Well, I think there's two things there. Not only did the government say so, but you have in New England a very heavy presence of what we call ENGOs, environmental non-government organizations, and they are absolutely convinced that we're throwing fish over the side dead. We're doing all kinds of heinous things, and of course these people don't fish. These organizations are made up mostly of lawyers.
There's Pete trying to call us. He's early,
and they're calling the shots here. They sue the government if the government doesn't do what they want, and judges go along with them a lot of times.
Yeah.
So, it really is a question that people should be asking. I mean, these are nonprofits by nature. A nonprofit is only allowed to educate people on a subject. They're not allowed to lobby for a position, and yet they actively lobby both at the council level, at the NOAA level, at the congressional level on a daily basis, and in violation of their nonprofit status. And they pay no taxes. They're a complete parasite on the system. And maybe hopefully your listeners will start asking presidential candidates, why these people, should maintain this nonprofit status.
I have one more question.
And why should they take government money to help them along too? Because a lot of these people feed off of government handouts.
Yeah, well, when you sue the government, you always sue to recover your attorney's fee. If you're a part of one of these organizations and you're a lawyer on full-time retainer, obviously, if you're not suing somebody, you're not earning your retainer. So they're like lawsuit factories. They're like lawsuit mills. They just turn them out on a pretty regular basis.
All right, I got one more quick question because we got about a minute left. Has anybody investigated the money trail to these private industries that monitor you?
Yes, there was a woman, I think the name of the organization was Greenwire, and she did a very good job of following the money trail of one of the largest of those companies, and it's run by a former head of NOAA.
Oh, there's a surprise. All right, well, David, we're out of time. Thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Yep.
All right, good luck, and hopefully we'll be in touch again soon.
Okay.
All righty, thank you, sir.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yep, bye.
All right, you want to grab him? Hang on, let me turn this down so that you can do your thing. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back as soon as I hit the right buttons. As soon as I hit the right buttons, I said.
Hey, Pete.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions. Welcome back to Grok Talk. Thanks again to David Goethel, who's got a bull by the horns. Boy, what a tough gig that is. So anyway, we are Grok Talk. I am Steve McDonald here with Mike Rogers, Jane Cormier. Check us out on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio, and of course at GraniteGrok.com. Now rebroadcast daily from 9 to 11 a.m. at GraniteGrok.com and Speaker.com and TheRockNHCR.com. Where was I going with this? We have a guest that we weren't expecting, but we're always happy to have on the phone. And I don't even know what we're going to talk about, but Mike does. So, good morning, Pete and Ingemi. How are you, sir?
Oh, well, out of the hospital, which is always a good thing, and ready to talk with Grok on Grok Talk.
Well, here we are. Let's talk. Mike. Hang on. I got to turn your headset up because you were on the phone.
Right. Pete, first of all, thanks so much for joining us. I'm glad you made it home, and we'll talk more about that later. I was taken with your column of a couple of days ago that's titled, Dole's not afraid of a GOP loss with Cruz. He's afraid of a GOP win with Cruz. And I think that's the point. Those lily-livered, yellow non-Republicans down there in D.C. are scared to death that he'll stop their gravy train stone cold like Superman on the tracks and put them out of their comfortable little jobs.
Well, thanks for having me on again, guys. And I want to point out that this piece is a very good piece. And there's a companion piece which actually went up less than 5 minutes before I called. I was really scrambling to get it finished before we got on the air, called Pastor Kelly and Nate Silver Help Decode the GOP Establishment. But to the original piece you were talking about, it leads with a quote from Senator Trent Lott from 2010 that has often been forgotten, that says, as soon as they get here, we need to co-opt them, when he was talking about the Tea Party people.
He said, we don't need any more Jim DeMints. If they get here, we need to co-opt them.
Right, and even before that, people forget, and a lot of people say, oh, the Tea Party just came about because of Barack Obama, but people forget that back in 2004, there was the Pork Busters movement, which you'll recall as a blogger and such, which was conservatives talking about not just giving out pork, and they were lambasted by people like Trent Lott, people like John Boehner, and so forth at the time, and I'm going to quote again from the piece, I'll say this about the so-called pork busters. I'm getting damn tired of hearing from them. They've been nothing but trouble ever since Katrina. We in Mississippi have not asked for more than we deserve. And it was talking about the runaway spending. I mean, there's a myth that conservatives in the GOP were saying nothing about runaway spending when George Bush was president and we had the House. That's just false. We were screaming about it. But what happened was the Republicans in the House objected and fought against us, and then suddenly, after 2006, when they lost everything, suddenly they were born-again deficit hawks because they didn't have the money, they didn't have the power to appropriate, so it didn't matter if they opposed spending. And this is what the GOP establishment has done consistently, in that they have, when they've needed the votes of conservatives, they have said, oh, come along with us. You know, we need to stick together for party unity. But when it comes to uniting behind a conservative, that's a different story. And Ted Cruz and even Marco Rubio are fairly solid conservatives. And in the second piece, Pastor Kelly points out that Rubio's ACU score is 98%. His big sin, of course, is the Gang of Eight bill, and that's a pretty big sin in my opinion. But
it's huge.
It's a huge sin, but in terms of Rubio's record, it's an aberration. Of course, compared to Ted Cruz, Cruz is 100% rated, and as I tweeted out yesterday, I'm sure there's something I disagree with Ted Cruz on, and if I really dug into his record deeper, I could probably find something. But I've been writing about him for years, and I haven't found it yet. So,
no, he's the real deal.
These guys are solid conservatives, and the establishment doesn't want them in. And Cruz is a real danger to win, despite the fact that Trump is as high as he is.
Yeah, I mean, just look at what they're doing to Rubio right now. As you say, apart from immigration, his record's very good. Club for Growth had kind words to say about him in terms of his fiscal rectitude, at least, if not his other aspects. And so on the Rhino side of the House, essentially Bush, Christie, Kasich are all trampling on Rubio in an attempt to become the second or third place person in New Hampshire. And it's ugly, but also great fun to watch. As for once,
I think it's also significant considering something.
Yeah.
I mean, in my new piece, I say that there's one of two possibilities that could happen here. That the establishment is still looking to nominate a George Bush, and the plan might be to take out both Cruz and Rubio early. Now, Cruz, you have to use all the big guns against, because as you might remember from my interview after he won the
603 Alliance Grassroots Caucus. Yeah.
He has a huge ground. Back then, in October, he had his full ground game in 24 states fully paid for by automatic contributions. So, and that was before he was doing as good as he was doing now.
And they say he's got 12,000 people on the ground in Iowa. 12,000.
Amazing.
But it's not just Iowa. He has a ground game in every state. The first 24 states, he had a ground game in back in October that was completely paid for. His fundraising has been through the roof since then. How much of a bigger ground game does he have in those states now? Or how many other states is he fully paid for with just the automatic contributions, not even counting larger contributions that are coming in? All hard money, so they got to go all in. But in New Hampshire, as you and I and everybody else know, everyone's hitting Rubio. Now, Rubio is not a threat to win in New Hampshire. But they have to take out Rubio before Florida for Jeb to be a viable alternative.
Yeah,
and Jeb has enough money that can come in. There's a lot of Bush money that, if they thought he was viable, might stay. The only way he stays viable is if Rubio is gone. He can't finish behind Rubio in Florida.
Well, it's nice to see, sorry, Steve, that there's actually disagreement in the establishment camp too, because one part of the establishment camp wants to take out Rubio and have Bush win, and the money that's still behind Bush, such as it is, wants to do that. On the other hand, another part of the establishment has been vocally warning Bush and his super PAC to lay off a Rubio in case they damage their one last chance.
It's an interesting thing.
gonna go look to see. My question was, isn't Bush like fourth or fifth in Florida?
Yeah, he's not even leading in his own
right
state.
Now,
yeah.
And the people ahead of him are Cruz and Rubio.
Florida primary.
He cannot finish behind Rubio in Florida.
Trump,
but
Cruz.
Rubio doesn't have the ground game.
Wednesday, January 20th, Florida Atlantic University has Trump at 48, Cruz at 16, Rubio at 11, Bush at 10.
Yeah, I read today, too, that I read early this morning that Rubio canceled a ton of his ads in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So Rubio knows, I think, the camp knows that that's not going to fly. And they're trying to, obviously reserve funds if they're canceling, television ads.
Yeah. If they can knock off Rubio early, then the alternatives to Trump. I mean, think about it. If you lose Cruz and Rubio, who is the conservative alternative in the GOP race? Is it Rand Paul, the Libertarian? I don't think so. Is it Carly Fiorina? Is it Chris Christie, who's much more acceptable to the establishment? Is it Ben Carson, who these guys think they can beat fairly easy? Those are the. And think about it. Either one of them would be the first Hispanic at the top of a GOP ticket. Yet
they're scared, and yet they're scared to death because one of them is going to shut off all of their perks, and the other one is going to cut down the government to fiscal terms at least.
Meanwhile, Hillary Clinton is having Castro rehearse his Spanish so he can be a running mate to try and save her, if she's savable, of course. But I think it's the same war in the establishment. Now, in terms of Trump, I think, as I said the very day, actually I should say the day after Trump's initial speech, that anyone who discounts him is making a mistake. There's people that I respect that we both know who've been on the Trump bandwagon even before he announced. And I'm a big Palin fan. I'm not going to dump on Palin for endorsing Trump any more than I would dump on you if you picked a candidate other than Cruz or anybody else. I mean, I wouldn't expect someone to dump on Glenn Beck because he picks Cruz any more than Palin for picking Trump, because there's a lot of good choices out there.
Yeah, I still think Trump's not everything he's saying he is.
Oh, I know. The question is he St. Paul? Is he Ella McGantry? Is he, how you had 9/11 conservatives? Is he a Barack Obama conservative?
Yes, he is. That's what he is. I mean, it's hope and change, make America great again. That's what it is. And I disagree with you totally about dumping, the quote dumping, and here's why. We all know good conservatives that have fought the battles here in New Hampshire to, serve conservatism. And some of these folk jumped on the Trump bandwagon early, even though they understood that policy-wise this guy was an anathema to conservatism. They are still sticking with them and with him, and I'm hearing again and again and again from these people saying, well, if Cruz wins, we'll support him, right? Because you know what? They know that Ted Cruz is the better candidate. But they got stuck on the Trump bandwagon, and now they can't turn back. But they're gonna do us a big favor after the war has been fought in the primary, right? They're gonna come out and do us a big favor, and they're gonna support Cruz. I think it's big of them, and I tell you what, I'm gonna still dump on them because that's our right to do. And once we give that up, we're finished. We don't. The dump thing is a word that people use to silence. We have the right to speak. We don't have necessarily the right to threaten or be, really crass and negative and hurtful. But we do have the right to speak clearly and concisely.
We have the right to speak, but I am not, as I don't know that there's an ulterior motive for not going to Cruz over Trump. I mean, I endorsed Cruz September 30th. So I've been on Cruz's bandwagon openly for a while. I don't like to say to a person, well, you're supporting someone under false pretenses. And like I said, it's very possible that Trump is that Barack Obama was Trump's 9/11 in the sense of where conservatism is. But again, this is like he could be St. Paul at the time that he came to the apostle and is saying, are you kidding me?
No, I
but
get
we
it.
don't know. But with Cruz, we know.
Absolutely.
Cruz has the record.
You're absolutely right. But you see, the thing is I keep seeing this on social media because I'm really active out there right now, posting stuff that I feel is supportive of what is a viable, vetted record with Ted Cruz, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm constantly being told, why are you being so negative? Why are you talking against other candidates? Well, you tell me, how do you have a debate with anybody?
There seems to be a lot of the attempt to shut down the debate.
There it is.
That's just foolish.
That's right, and that's what I'm talking about. That's not going to help the cause, because when we sit down and we shut up, there is no debate. There is no way to vet these guys. This guy Trump is dangerous. I say it again for all my conservative friends out there that think that they're going to be behind the guy that's going to win. Well, you know what? We didn't want Barack to win, and he won on the same sloppy, hope-and-changey thing. And now we're looking at Trump doing the same thing. This is so wrong. We waited for decades to get a good constitutional conservative to run for this office. Now we have him, and we have folks that will go to the side and say, you know what, but, and they go behind this guy. I think it's atrocious.
Oh, I would agree, but I would also say that if Trump is the nominee, I'll vote for him over Clinton without a question, because I know what Hillary Clinton. I know that Hillary Clinton is willing to leave Americans to die in Benghazi.
Mm-hmm.
There's
True.
We have doubts about Trump, and all those doubts are legitimate. And because he has a personal record, and those doubts are legitimate, although he did stand up for the Miss America thing in 2009. Everyone forgot about that. I actually found my post on it that I had completely forgotten from 2009, him defying the media. Everyone was shocked that he had done it. But we know that Hillary will leave Americans to die, and I will not stay home or change something else and put a commander-in-chief and reward a person like that as commander-in-chief.
Mm-hmm.
It just cannot be done.
Mm-hmm.
It would be evil to do that.
Mm.
But I am completely behind Ted Cruz. But I'm saying that the GOP establishment does not want an actual Tea Partier in there.
Mm-hmm.
No, they don't. They lost it over Palin. They lost it over Cruz. Let us not forget, and I'll make this quick, Steve, that all the maneuvering in terms of the primary rules was meant to shut out Cruz, and then they got trumped. They didn't know Trump was coming. It shook the entire thing up. And Cruz is basically like the Frankenstein that got out of the cage. They have brought Trump and Cruz upon themselves, and they left Cruz alone long enough that he is now too strong for them to defeat, and I actually believe that.
Mm-hmm.
I thoroughly believe that he's a ground game in every state, just about. And in my opinion, unless Trump wins the nomination delegates outright for the convention, Cruz is going to make it to the convention alive. If Cruz makes it to the convention alive, I wouldn't bet against Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
No, nor would we bet against Trump picking him as Veep, which would help keep Trump on the straight and narrow.
Frankly, if I was Trump, I would promise. If I was Cruz, I would promise to put Trump in charge of building the wall if elected. If I was Trump, I would promise that the first opening in the Supreme Court goes to Ted Cruz. And I'll tell you that if there's one thing I'm worried about with Trump, because I have a gut that it's not going to be as bad as a lot of people think with him, it's the Supreme Court.
Yep, got it.
And if he put Cruz on the Supreme Court, I'd love it. But I'd love more for Cruz to serve as president and then later be appointed to the Supreme Court, like William Howard Taft did. He would be the second president ever to go to the Supreme Court from the presidency.
All right, we're out of time. How do people reach you, sir?
They can reach me at thetechguyblog.com. I also, by the way, though I'm not on the radio anymore, I have a podcast, and if you subscribe, even if it's as little as $1 a month or whatever you subscribe at, you will get my podcast weekly. I'll be recording it later today and talking about things like this as well.
Hey, shoot us a quick link or an update and an email about that so we don't forget.
Thetechguyblog.com.
All right.
Thank you, Pete. Take care. Be well. We'll call you later.
All right. Thanks a lot,
Pete.
Pete.
All of you, thanks for having me.
Yep, we'll see you. All right. That was Pete. We'll be right back with, I forgot. Who's my next guest? Rick Manning.
Rick
we'll
Manning.
Be right back.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now, at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter.
Rock Talk.
From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.
Oh, feel the power.
Oh, I can feel it.
Our moment of triumph approaches. It's
Rock Talk.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW, New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
As the first in the nation New Hampshire primary approaches, both Governors Chris Christie and John Kasich have appeared to climb in the polls. But a new WMUR-CNN poll released just this week beats those narratives back into submission. Not only are they back at 6%, if they ever were any higher than 6%, their favorability is in decline and their unfavorability is on the rise. According to WMUR-CNN, Donald Trump continues to top the field in New Hampshire with 34% of likely Republican primary voters. Trump is followed by Cruz at 14%, Rubio at 10%, Bush at 10%, Senator Rand Paul at 6%, Christie and Kasich at 6%, Fiorina at 4%, Carson at 3%, and Huckabee at 1%. And there's nothing all that surprising about those numbers. What was surprising was that one of the questions asked primary voters who regularly read the Union Leader who they support. Trump came in first at 24%, Marco Rubio came in second at 19%, and Governor Bush came in third at 17%. If you'd forgotten, the Union Leader endorsed Governor Christie. New Hampshire House Democrat Catherine Rogers had introduced House Bill 1368, which would require proof of a qualified liability insurance policy before being able to legally purchase or own a firearm. The hearing, which was this week, produced overwhelming opposition. Overwhelming in this context is an understatement. We expect very much that this bill will die in committee and be buried on the floor of the House. The super slick 30-minute video produced by SAU 55 to sell the $4.6 million construction bond for the Hampstead Central School is now available on GraniteRock.com. You can check it out for yourself. Somewhere just after minute number 2, they actually tell people viewing it to support the vote for the bond for $4.6 million. This makes this something like electioneering, kind of like an expensive 30-minute piece of political theater that might show up in your mailbox like a big fat glossy mailer, except that it's video, and that it was probably paid for with taxpayer dollars by the Earl of Metzler and SAU 55. We have inquiries out to find out exactly what, if any, laws were broken and who will be held responsible. Don't forget to check out past episodes of Rock Talk every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time right here on GraniteRock.com. You can also listen on Spreaker.com. Podcast episodes are available on iHeartRadio, TuneIn, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. If you listen to us on The Rock, nhcr.com, you can also listen to past episodes every Monday through Friday from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Finally, yesterday was Wilbur Scoville's birthday. Scoville was a pharmacist who invented the Scoville scale for measuring the spiciness or hotness of peppers. Wilbur would have been 151.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Rock Talk.
Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteRock.com. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio, microphone stomping, conservatives, and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteRock.com.
Rock Talk.
Grok Talk is brought to you by the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers and the bloggers at GraniteGrok.com, coming to you live almost every Saturday from 9 to 11 Eastern Time. And as you heard in the news read, of course, we are now available every day of the week from 9 to 11 at GraniteGrok.com, Spreaker.com, and NHCRTheRock.com. So no excuses for missing this or past programs. Lots of opportunity to listen to guests like our next one, President for Americans for Limited Government, and a long-time public affairs. I'm going to start over. I'm just... I got a little blah. Our next guest is the President of Americans for Limited Government and a longtime public affairs professional. Forget it. Rick Manning, welcome to the program.
Hey, how are you doing?
You know, I talk for 2 hours every day, and I'm just out of it. So, good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be with you. Whoever the heck I am.
Whoever the heck you are. Hang on, I got a little echo going on here. I gotta find it. All right, so echo or no echo. We're, I believe, talking about what did I just call it? The HUD Midwest Hustle. Apparently something very interesting is going on with Chicago and Dubuque, and it involves seizing property.
Yeah, it's what HUD's doing, and they've done it in Westchester County, New York, and now they're more distressing is they're now doing it in Dubuque, Iowa. And here's what they did. It's very simple. They declared Dubuque, Iowa as being part of the Chicago region. Now, those of you who are familiar with maps know that Dubuque is in Iowa, not in Chicago. Dubuque is 200 miles from Chicago. But Dubuque has something that the Chicago residents wanted. They wanted Section 8 housing. And because Chicago had torn down a lot of the Section 8 housing in the most drug-infested areas, they did not have enough Section 8 housing. So the big idea was, let's export our users of Section 8 housing to Dubuque, Iowa, because Dubuque, Iowa makes the mistake of taking HUD community redevelopment funds. So they did it in a very sneaky way. They just declared, out of the blue, that Dubuque, Iowa was in the Chicago region. And they looked at the map and the demographics, and they said, Dubuque, Iowa doesn't look like Chicago. It doesn't have enough ethnic diversity. Consequently, to alleviate this, Dubuque, Iowa must build Section 8 housing, and HUD is going to tell them exactly where they're going to build it, and take over essentially the building of the infrastructure, not pay for it, mind you, but take over the zoning of the building of the infrastructure to support the new Section 8 housing to accommodate the people of Chicago we're going to move to Dubuque. All this is because the Obama administration has a theory that they are promoting where they are hoping to move people from low-income housing areas to places that don't have a lot of low-income housing, or at least they don't have a disproportionate amount of low-income housing, in an attempt to, their idea is the people's lives will be better because they're living in Dubuque rather than living in Chicago.
Yeah.
And they don't really care what the people of Dubuque think. They don't care what the people of Iowa think.
They don't care whether these people are employable in the local economy.
And they don't care if these people are employable in the local economy, correct. Now, the interesting part about this, beyond the obvious destruction of state and local government, which this accomplishes, is that they did a 15-year study prior to doing all this stuff and passing a regulation called the American, it's a Fair and Affordable Housing Act or something like that. But they passed a regulation that allows this to occur. Before that, they did a 15-year study to see if it would work by bringing people into environments where they weren't familiar and plopping them in. Would they succeed better than they did before? Ironically, the only thing that people who were put through this actually did better on is they had lower incidence of diabetes. Everything else, they were the same crime rate, the same number of people of joblessness, the same amount of people on welfare, the same, virtually every other metric, every metric that you would think might be impacted in terms of better economic quality of life, failed. But they do have lower rates of diabetes, I guess.
Well, great. That'll cost us just a little bit less, but hang on there. So you're bringing in people that don't work, that take government money, that commit crimes, and that their own quality of life is not improved significantly, but you're going to do it anyway. And on top of that, you're bringing in people that don't add anything to the local tax base, that are in housing that's subsidized, probably by the local tax base, and using infrastructure that the local tax base is paid for. So in other words, the locals pay more for everything, and the new residents basically don't contribute much.
That's absolutely correct. Essentially what HUD's doing from a federal government level is they're saying, we gave you community redevelopment grants, and now we're going to tell you how to use them. And we're going to take over not only your zoning, but where you put Section 8 housing, but we're also going to take over where you need to build infrastructure, what kind of infrastructure you need to build. Every aspect of local government that is a normal function of what a city official or county official does gets taken over under this, because it's all built around accommodating this radical theory that they have of moving populations. And get this, being in New Hampshire, I'm sure you're aware that a 200-mile radius puts you in the into Boston, and you become essentially a suburb of Boston, which many people in New Hampshire feel that you're becoming anyway. But but for all intents and purposes, from a federal government perspective, since state lines don't matter and city lines don't matter and county lines don't matter, all of New Hampshire could effectively be if Concord took community redevelopment grants, they could come in and say, okay, well, you got to take this problem from Boston, and we're transplanting it to Concord, and you don't have anything you can say about it, and we're going to take over all your local zoning functions.
Skip?
Yeah, hi, Rick. This is Skip Murphy, and thanks for coming on the show. We've been writing about this for quite some time. We've got the same problem written small called Granite State Futures, where basically one of the 9 regional planning commissions takes HUD money, and then we've stopped them several times in trying to federalize the local zoning laws. This is really an audacious example of what you're talking about in Dubuque, of administrative law gone crazy. And the problem I have is Julian Castro, who is the head of HUD right now in D.C., is also being rumored as a possible VP for the Wildebeest as she campaigns around. If she does get elected, can we basically say that state and local governments are toast?
I think if any Democrat gets elected, state government's toast, state and local government's toast. I don't think it's restricted to Hillary, who may or may not survive the legal process. The bottom line is this is a radical theory that's designed to destroy local communities and to encapsulate them within the larger big city matrix. And it's not, and it has nothing to do with really helping people, and everything to do with whether or not the federal government can control every aspect of our lives. And it's dangerous, and I think anybody who looks at Bernie Sanders can't exactly say, well, gee, if Bernie got elected, we'll be saved from this. The one thing that's happened is the good news on this. Let me give you some good news. The House has twice, in the last 2 years, passed a defund of the HUD's ability to implement this regulation. And each time it has not survived the omnibus process in terms of getting into the final bill. But momentum is growing dramatically as more and more places, as it's becoming clear that it's being implemented in more and more places. And not just Republican constituencies, but Democrat constituencies are saying, we don't like this. You're taking over our town and we don't like it. And so we're building momentum to try to stop this thing. And I believe that the people in New Hampshire should be talking to these presidential candidates and asking them, where are you in terms of stopping the federal government taking over our local communities? Because the four of those presidential candidates are walking around your streets are Republican candidates in the Senate, from the Senate, who ought to have a real voice in this, since we're getting stopped in the Senate time and time again.
Yeah, we have asked several of the presidential candidates, notably Carly Fiorina and Ted Cruz, on this, on the whole idea of the administrative state, which really is the end goal of the progressives, that basically take democracy right out of the whole picture. Do you agree with this, that what we're seeing is the height of the Alinsky haves to have-nots as well as critical race theory, and that it really boils down to the reason why this is happening is because those that see racism behind every single tree blame whites for leaving the inner city and taking their tax money with them, and this is basically retribution against the haves. To be able to say, well, as long as you took your tax money away from those that need it, so you're being selfish to boot, we're going to turn the tables on you. So we're going to
I think that's
all over the place.
right.
Other than just cities, Dubuque, we're seeing this in California, in the Bay Area. Obviously, you talked about Westchester, which we've written about and had the county administrator on several times. But how fast do you think this is going to spread?
I think if we don't stop in this election cycle, it will be irretrievable. If you have 4 years of this being government policy and with full free reign to accomplish it, the damage that will be done in the hundreds and hundreds of communities that take community redevelopment grants, they will all be forced to be compelled to engage in this policy. I know Baltimore County they're doing it in Baltimore City, Baltimore County. So there's this, it's already happening because the regulation's in place, and once it gets its firm clause into the system, they will have accomplished their goal, and they will have accomplished their goal before there's another presidential election. So the time is now. We have to stop it now. Let me share with you a little bit on the race theory, because I think it's really at the core of it. The Senate confirmed a judge on Tuesday who wrote in the UCLA Law Review that people who want to get out of low-income housing, slums in the inner city, have as much right to the property in the suburbs as the people who purchased it, and that the purchase of property is effectively racist in its core. So, this is just confirmed as a federal judge in Minnesota, a very qualified woman who checked all the boxes, and the ABA says she was extremely well qualified to be a federal judge. We just put this person on the bench for life. She she's an up-and-comer who is preaching that private property itself is racist and that people who live in Boston have an absolute right to come to Concord and take whatever they need to take, and government should be the force to do that. So, when you look at it, there's not relief in the courts because Obama's stacking the bench with these kind of thinkers. And once you lose the right of contract, the right of property, you have your last bit of freedom is gone. In fact, that is almost by definition slavery. So that's a fundamental assault that exists. This AFFH regulation is the tool they're using to accomplish this. And it's time for the Republicans to figure it out and say we've got to stop this now. And one of the reasons we keep pushing on it with people like Stanley Kurtz and others, who's written a lot of great stuff about it, is that we see this as a fundamental assault on our basic federalist form of government and our core freedoms. And people don't even realize that it's happening because there's never been a vote on Congress on it affirmatively to do it. They're applying the Fair Housing Act from the 1960s and expanding it to apply this legal theory.
Okay, Rick, we're just about out of time. Thanks again so much for coming on. How do people reach you to continue to learn more about this or to support your efforts?
I would encourage everybody to get on netrightdaily.com. That's netrightdaily.com. And just subscribe, and you'll receive every weekday you'll receive 2-3 unique articles that we come up with about different things like this that are occurring. And as critical points are occurring on this debate in Congress, we will let you know so you can let your congressman know. But in the meantime, tell the presidential candidates that they need to talk about this, that they need to stop it. That's the number one thing people in New Hampshire can do. All
right. Well, thanks so much for taking some time to talk to us today.
Thank you.
All right. You have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. That was Rick Manning from Americans for Limited Government. We are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Max Abramson for a legislative update.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
This is the Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to Rock Talk. Find the right volume button.
And Skip's still with us on the line?
He is. It's off right now, though, because if I talk and he talks, we get air. So we're going to leave him on the line. We're going to bring him in a second. I'm here with Max Abramson. Jane Cormier is our guest host for today. And, of course, Mike Rogers is running the video live stream. We are Grok Talk, brought to you by GraniteGrok.com and the New Hampshire of Coalition Taxpayers. Coalition of New Hampshire Taxpayers.
Yeah.
I have the best today. Really bad. So it's pretty sad.
You must be. Did you have your coffee today?
I have coffee every day.
Oh, okay.
I almost don't. There very rarely is there a time when I don't have coffee.
Yes, I'm with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's my weight loss program.
Is it now?
Kind of, pretty much. Yeah. I think if I stopped drinking coffee, I'd be like,
yeah.
Because I'd be drinking something else, probably had more calories. Although my coffee has a lot of calories in it. So anyway, let's. We haven't had an opportunity to talk much about, and I am as guilty as anybody about local legislation. The legislature's been in session since the beginning of the month. A lot of things have been happening. We've mentioned a few things, of course, like Ms. Rogers' insurance on your gun bill, and there's of course a lot of other things to talk about. But Max is here. We've managed to get through all our scheduling hurdles and parking problems, and he's managed to get to the studio to talk to us about some legislation.
Now, I attended that hearing. Part of the reason I went up on Thursday was to attend that hearing. I wanted to speak against that bill. But I went in, and it was standing room only in the Commerce Committee. Representative Rogers who, of course, is an individual with her very, very strong opinions.
Just watching
Trying to think of
choose the right words. Sorry.
Very strong opinions and very strong hair coloring in her hair.
It's
usually
blue now?
red. It's blue now, but it's usually blue on one side or purple on one side.
Fashion victim?
Fashion victim?
Yeah, she might be.
Be
Anyway.
nice, gentlemen.
So
Be
anyway,
nice.
we go in. She's talking for 35 or 40 minutes, and it's this droning. Sorry.
Men go to
She
quick
is-
change the oil in their cars. Ladies go to, well, some go to quick change the color of their hair.
She's going through her points over and over and over again, as though making gun owners buy liability insurance is going to do anything. The problem is there's no state in the country where they make you buy liability insurance. Second, the room's full of gun owners. Commerce Committee, as far as I know, has never been overwhelmed with gun owners before. They had not one blue sheet, but 2 blue sheets. I added my name to the blue sheet. Every single person signing onto the blue sheet has said, no, this is terrible, this is a terrible idea. They've all checked the no box. There's a stack of pink cards about an inch thick. Those are people who want to speak, and they were all against. And it seemed overwhelming that there was absolute opposition. Of course, no company sells liability insurance for gun owners.
It's called a stupid bill, you know?
It's a gun ban bill, and I wrote about it on Grok Talk, and I explained all the things that were wrong with it, including the fact that we would lose all our hunting tourism because nobody with a gun could come into the state without liability insurance because nobody else offers it.
Stupid,
It's
huh?
just a dumb bill. But we don't want to linger on the dumb bill for too long.
And, well, she has
'Cause
another
it's so
bill
dumb.
to ban flamethrowers.
Oh, yes,
And
yes, she does.
That is probably the most ridiculed bill in the State House this year.
She's got
Every
a
once in
bunch
while.
of gun bills
Yeah.
and weapons bills, and
But
it's like she saw something on TV and then she was inspired to.
well, I have quite a few bills in also, but they're always to repeal something like New Hampshire's dumbest law, protect rights, evidence preservation, or something to save taxpayers money on something. So I have quite a few bills in also. New Hampshire's dumbest law, we had a hearing right before this gun insurance bill. New Hampshire's dumbest law was a contest that we ran and received something like 30 or 40 different entries on ridiculous laws. And the one that floated to the top was RSA 207, Section 48. In night, if any person shall carry away or collect for the purpose of carrying away any seaweed or rockweed from the seashore below the high water mark between daylight in the evening and daylight in the morning, he shall be guilty of a violation. So the executive director of Fish and Game came in. He said they didn't really know why, with any certainty, why they did this, but apparently it had something to do with people pulling or cutting rockweed, eelgrass, live seaweed off. He said, they officially they oppose the bill, but he's not going to lose any sleep over it. The reason, the thing that really got people is you have loose seaweed just kind of washed up on the beach. It's not like we're going to run out of this. A million years from now, we're still going to have seaweed coming in from the ocean washing up on the beach. So it sounds like that's going to result in an amendment that just clearly says if you pick up loose seaweed day or night, they don't mind if people pull it up. So that was an interesting hearing, and those sorry, the kid behind this came all the way out from Middleton, which is complete opposite side of the state. It's about a 2-hour drive. He came out with his father, and he delivered a little short speech. And during the questioning, they asked this kid. They said, "So, do you go collect seaweed on the beach?" And he immediately says, "No, because I have a life." So I left. I amended House Concurrent Resolution 10. I did 2 resolutions last year, and I'm doing 1 resolution this year. And this one is asking the Department of Veterans Affairs and Congress to see whether or not benzodiazepines or opioids are contributing to the high rate of suicides among armed service members and veterans. We're losing about 1 armed service member a day to suicide, and we're losing about 22 veterans a day to people taking their own lives. And so this was one of the main things that motivated me to run for State House in the first place. I did run into a little bit of flack. They're trying to defend benzodiazepines, but what we found is in the private sector there's a tremendous correlation between people being overprescribed these 2 items and taking their own life. For some reason, both for private citizens and veterans. For some reason, people take benzodiazepines and they lose their inhibitions. And I noticed you get the same effect with cocaine, you get the same effect with opium and opioids. Over time, it wears down the inhibition centers in the brain. In the frontal lobe and parietal lobe, we saw a great presentation on this. And so many of the people who've survived suicide attempts from benzodiazepines said that when they decided to take their own life, they just felt no reason not to try to hang themselves or overdose. They saw no reason not to, and there was no inhibition. They felt a darkness come over them. But they didn't hate themselves. They didn't have a reason to take their own life. They just made a decision to do it, and there was nothing to stop them. So maybe these psychotropic and psychoactive drugs are having the effect.
They're pretty much shutting out the reasoning portion of your brain that would say something like, well, I have tomorrow to live for and all these other things and the rest of my life and da-da-da. You just don't care.
There's no logic. There's no reason. There's no emotion. The emotion shuts down. Skip,
you there? Skip's not there.
Isn't he?
I don't know. He's not talking when I asked him, so we'll keep. I was going to say.
Try it again. The line's still there.
All right. Skip. You
want me to redial him?
Nah, we're good. I hate using the phone. 2 phone lines is a zoo. Anyway, the echo was a result of something going on with Rick's connection, but we kind of got around it. So anyway, please
Yesterday,
proceed.
This is even more interesting. In judiciary, we had the Born Alive Protection Act.
Oh.
Sometimes children are born alive, or they are born alive as part of the abortion procedure, or they're preemie babies born early, and they are still alive. They still have their heart beating and their breathing. You see voluntary muscle movement. And they're terminated. They're killed outside the womb. Well, people can't believe that this could happen, yet the people in the medical industry and people who work in abortion clinics...
Well, you're sitting next to the chairman of New Hampshire Right to Life, so...
I'm always...
I believe it.
I'm always taking their posts on Facebook and I share them on my wall to try and network out with other pro-life folks. Also part of the pro-life caucus. This was one of our most important bills of the year, I think. It's the most likely to pass. Who knows what will happen in the state Senate, but it's most likely to pass.
I understood there were a lot more people that were supporting the bill that were at the meeting, than at the committee hearing, than those against. Is that true?
We had the typical, what was it, Timothy Horrigan, who's on judiciary.
Yeah.
He supported the Rogers bill.
Yeah, I'm sure he
Co-sponsor.
did. I mean, he's got nothing.
What was it?
Nothing up there.
They have a couple of lawyers and
doctors. I heard a couple of doctors. Unfortunately, at these hearings, the doctors are giving such deference by the committee members that if a physician tends to speak at a hearing, for some reason it's given more weight as a witness than not. So I guess as our job is we have to try to get pro-life.
Not to take us off topic, but isn't it amazing that after being involved in this process of being a blogger and meeting all these people, you meet potential presidential candidates, senators, congressmen, governors, state senators, House members. After a while, you've met all these people, hundreds, maybe thousands of them, and you're just like, so what? So when I see a doctor, even my own doctor, I have deference to his professional skill. But that's where it ends.
Yeah, but you have to have an inquiring mind to do that.
You do. But I mean, because some people are like, you talk to who? You met who?
Yeah.
I mean, my wife is still impressed when she meets politicians and stuff because she just doesn't do it every day.
Right.
So it's an interesting and new experience to her. And most people are like that because they're not involved in this sausage factory nonsense day in and day out. They're not paying that kind of attention, and they're not meeting these people.
But I am an elected official, so we run into these celebrities and governors.
And they're not. And they're just...
We're just like, okay, here comes Chris Sununu again.
But, with regard to the point about giving doctors deference and stuff, as far as the professional analysis is concerned, but the minute it deviates into ideology...
The vast majority of Republicans, Libertarians, Conservatives, I think generally, we get tired of people at the top, the politicians, the bureaucrats, the people who live in their ivory towers, micromanaging everything else. We like to hear from the soldiers. We like to hear from rank and file firefighters, police officers, small business owners, engineers, the guys who are getting their hands dirty and physically are seeing the coffee get made, The people are really down there doing the work. The
David
doctors and
Goethel,
nurses.
he's out there on his 44-foot fishing boat, trying to make a living while the government's got his boot on his neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People like that.
I mean, literally,
people own houseboats.
with people on board
literally,
the boat.
literally on
The people who own houseboats in Seattle, or Portsmouth, the Coast Guard officials walk right into your houseboat. It's your home,
but
because
it's a boat.
It's on the water.
They
Well, it's
have-
not
right.
a boat. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah. But I mean, it's on the water. It's on the water.
But it's not on a foundation. They go in. It's your home. Ignore the Fourth Amendment. Ignore the Fifth Amendment. Your Fifth Amendment rights. They just walk right on. You could be sleeping there. You got a Coast Guard official waking you up, and he's sitting there with his little clipboard, and he leaves you $5,000 in fines or $10,000 in fines or who knows how much. He gets off your boat, gets onto the pier, walks to the next houseboat, walks on, enters, starts going around writing up other fines for somebody else, and they'll just go through every single
Apparently,
houseboat.
the houseboat owners don't have a lobbyist. That'd be my guess.
And your constitutional rights.
It's time all of these vessels were outfitted with a plank, and the words on it should say Coast Guard plank,
and
that's where they should go.
Two or
if they
three
come on,
sharks
that's the way they leave.
who circle just to take care of government bureaucrats.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't say that.
Well, if they
not
showed
supposed
up
to be
on
mean.
if they showed up on Mike's houseboat, they might leave with some shot in their chest.
So we voted on a number of bills on the floor. Unfortunately, the Jasper Democrat Alliance continues to hold, and the real Republicans, conservatives, constitutionalists, libertarians, platform Republicans, hold together to protect your constitutional rights. We're being outnumbered by rhinos and Democrats. So a lot of people who are not in the know think that, they see these corrupt rhinos, they say, oh, that means the Republicans are terrible. Most of the time they're actually Democrats who come from a safe Republican district, and this is why I keep saying I think we need a third party, because the conservative third parties, Constitution Party, Libertarian Party, what have you, when we've run candidates, we've defeated rhinos in these safe Republican towns. More than, I would say, about half of our legislative candidates have been these three-way races where you have two Democrats, one runs as a Republican, one runs as a Democrat. They're baseballing this little district, and there's nothing you can do to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll use Constitution Party, Libertarian Party, what have you, and we'll
what
get
you
rid of
need.
these guys.
What you need is a party that actually cares what the philosophy of its members are.
Mm-hmm.
If the Republican Party kicked out people who behaved and voted like Democrats,
There'd be no one left.
no. There's viable people.
There would be a small
There'd be much
caucus.
fewer.
Yes. Well, there would be very few people left on the executive council.
Yeah. Wow.
Including the chairman.
But I mean, we have to at some point do that. Otherwise, the Republican Party doesn't stand for.
Well, you make a good point, and I think the biggest barrier to that is probably there's well, I mean, it's tough in a presidential year because, libertarians, even the anarchist libertarians, the conservatives, the social and fiscal conservatives, they always fight with each other during a presidential campaign because, we have Rand Paul or we have Ron Paul and we have some conservative candidate who's really just a secret rhino, and then this guy was making deals with so-and-so, and, Rand Paul said nice things to Mitch McConnell, so we can't, and so you get this bickering, and you can't get away from it. It's just the nature of libertarians, conservative Republicans. There's always going to be the bickering during the campaign
The
season.
independent thinkers.
And right, and that's good. It's healthy to have it, but it keeps us from doing anything productive together over the course of that period of time. So until after the primary, really, it seems like, the activists, not necessarily the people who are in office. But when you get to election season, these are all the same people who are going to vote for the same people. Their core values, at least 80% or more of them, are all the same. And they're going to support the same kinds of candidates. And if we had somebody in a party like that, the rest of the year, it seems like, that kind of person would be the ideal rhino
Let's take
killer.
a look at safe Democratic states. The safest that there is California. It's the largest state. 60% Democrat. Nevertheless, who are the last three governors who've won? Arnold Schwarzenegger, Pete Wilson, Ronald Reagan. I think those are the only three Republicans who've won since Eisenhower. Back in the days of Eisenhower, of course, the entire West Coast was Republican. But that's another story. Those are three individuals who stuck by their principles. They talked about immigration and illegal immigration. They talked about rights and protecting our small business community from being regulated to death and taxed to death and so forth. And they talked about issues that pulled over lots and lots of Democrats, some of whom have become Republican. But when you just keep feeding Democratic voters the George Soros agenda, the Democrats who break off, they don't like the George Soros agenda. They don't like the billionaire liberal establishment agenda, because if they like that, they're just voting straight Democrat, and they don't mind being abused by Democrat insiders. They don't care. Or they care, but they're still going to go back to their abusers, just like people who love being abused.
Like people in Massachusetts who vote Democrat. Their dad voted Democrat. Their grandfather voted Democrat. Their great-grandfather voted Democrat. Whatever it is,
Nevertheless,
it just doesn't occur to them.
Charlie Baker still won.
Boston has managed. Massachusetts has managed to elect Republican governors, but when was the last time they even came close to having any kind of reasonable representation in the legislature?
Right.
Couple hundred years.
But again, the Libertarian Party a couple of times has come in second, ahead of the Republicans down there. I think Carla Howell won 13% against Ted Kennedy, and the Republican only won 10%.
I have a question that's totally not related to what we're saying.
You want to save it because we're going to take a break and we can come back. All right, we'll come back after this, and we will talk about whatever it is Jane wants to talk about, which is the way it should be, right?
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is the repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested, riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at GerardAtLarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
Need more Grok Talk? Well, you can catch new shows Saturday mornings from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Miss a show? Not a problem. Past shows are rebroadcast here daily from 9 to 11 a.m. Monday through Friday. Join us for 2 hours of unapologetic conservatism. And we're not just armed with opinions.
Rock Talk.
Welcome back to Grok. As I move the wrong slider. All right. Max Abramson is to my right. Jane Cormier directly ahead of me. Mike Rogers is to my right when I face this way.
Because I'll never admit to being to his left.
He's not to my left.
That's right.
He's not to my left. Jane.
Yes.
You were going to ask a question.
I was. While we're talking about the politic of the GOP, the travesty that happened putting Jasper in as head of the House.
He's not the head of us.
He's not the head of us, of true conservatism, it's true, but he is the head of the House right now. And since you're a sitting rep, my question is how do you see that happening? Let's say that he gets reelected. Do you think that there's another term for Jasper in the State House?
It seems less and less likely. I think that the House Democratic leadership deliberately put Jasper in for the purpose of dividing House Republicans. They know that he's a bully. They know that he's a divisive figure. They know that he loves making backroom deals. And he's viewed by a lot of people as just another one of these rhinos. He's a Democrat who runs as a Republican.
But Republicans put him in.
But
Republicans had to vote to put him in that seat. So what changes between this session and next session?
Now, see, a lot of Republicans and a lot of conservatives say, well, we're going to confine our vote to the primary, the September primary. It's very important to vote in the primary. It's very important to look at libertyballot.com and some of the other websites that help those of us who don't have a lot of time for state and local politics. Libertyballot.com is it's more libertarian leaning, but it's a very good tool to use if you're going to vote in the primary. LibertyBallot.com is probably, you just punch in your town and it punches out your ballot. But a lot of folks just vote in the Republican primary, and then whoever wins the primary, they just show up and vote for that person. I think Jasper has done so much damage to the state to serve his own ego that I would rather vote for a Democrat, if Jasper survives the primary and some of his own cronies survive the primary, I would rather vote Democrat. I would rather replace him with a Democrat than let Jasper get in again. And there were even members talking about there were even members talking about replacing Jasper with a Democratic speaker, because a Democratic speaker, even Steve Shurtleff, wouldn't be doing as much damage to
the Republican brand.
Well, therein lies the thing. There is no real brand anymore.
The Speaker of the House has absolute unaccountable power.
Yeah.
So when he makes these backroom deals with Hassan and with Shurtleff and Ray Buckley, and you see Shurtleff and Ray Buckley up on the third floor laughing and talking with Jasper, and they're talking about how they're going to screw people who they don't like and how they're going to make these deals. They held up the entire budget to get another $12 million in pay raises for politically well-connected Democrats who are just Hassan's own taxpayer-funded lobbyists, commissioners, agency heads, the drug czar, heads of various agencies whose only job is to go from one committee to the other through the state house and state senate and push the Democrat Party's agenda, which is not what a lot of Democratic voters think is their agenda. It's just straight more taxes, more spending, more laws, more lawsuits, more regulations, more control, and more of the same George Soros agenda on everything. And that's, your tax dollars are going to lobby for the George Soros agenda at your expense, and that's all these agency heads are doing. They're lobbying in the state house.
How do we make sure that he doesn't sit there again, though?
Yeah,
we have to vote out Jasper.
Yeah, this circular arrangement here, where the government pays these agency heads who go out and lobby to get more money, to fund more government, to pay, to make the whole thing more powerful, round and round and round.
I work more so I can make more money, so I can take more cocaine, so I can work more, so I can make more money, so I can take more cocaine, so I can work more.
If you see a quote-unquote Republican, quote-unquote, and they have that little 2-inch Jasper gavel, the little brass Jasper gavel on their lapel, that's the dead giveaway. Never vote for that person ever again for anything. Those are the rhinos. A lot of them are just flat-out Democrats.
And what is the official stated purpose of the Jasper gavel? Is that like a committee membership?
Yeah, well, it's to show their undying support for His Majesty.
Is there a list of these people?
Almost all the chairs and vice chairs.
Can't we put a yellow? Can't we put the yellow mark on their clothing or something?
And they're already putting the little brass Jasper gavel on their lapel. They're wearing it in the same spot over their heart.
We need to have a list.
People need to
How
start.
do we find out?
Can you get all the conservatives and the liberty people to take pictures or selfies or something? Say, hey, can I take a picture with you?
That would be really
And then just
helpful.
send it to us, and then we'll crop them out, and we'll see these are the people, and we'll have a rogues gallery of these. folks.
Obviously, Kidder, Bob Rowe, John Thole, Hinch, Flanagan. We know who the rhinos are.
We know, but we want to tell people in their districts who they are.
It's interesting. That
if you're a Republican, if you're a New Hampshire Republican, and that's all you're concerned about, look at the voting scores. Go to nhhra.org.
Yeah, but they don't all show that. What about Laura Jones, who was a pretty liberty-minded gal and supported Sean Jasper?
Wow.
Yes.
So it is true that most of them will show in the voting
Jasper,
record, but not all.
Because there aren't enough rhinos to go around, something like 50 or 60 leadership positions. So he's pulled people in, representatives in, like Claire Roulard, Tammy Simmons, and
right.
those are pretty good, honest, ethical, principled people. Jasper doesn't like those people around, so he's thrown something like 4 different women either off committee or off leadership position. Laura Sanborn was pulled off the finance committee because she wouldn't support the 8-cent per gallon gas tax. It had no chance of passing on the floor. The Democrats, Jasper and his buddies, wanted to push this through, but even the rhinos, they know if they pass an 8-cent per gallon gas tax increase, they're going to be gone. They're going to be voted out by the Republicans, at least by the taxpayers, folks.
Well, that's a tough row to hoe, because you have these people who are normally considered to be pretty respectable, either libertarian or conservative candidates, and they throw in with the devil basically. And you have to. I mean, they can say, well, they could give you I wanted to get inside and see if I could make a difference.
So
they say,
bogus.
but that's the seat at the table argument.
Yeah, I know.
And I don't.
But the last couple of weeks, we've seen that Jasper has even become more and more abusive towards Democratic members of the House, whether they're injured, disabled. He's just trying to get some of the work done of the House, just trying to get things accomplished. that have nothing to do with what gets passed through on the floor, but just basic things like seating assignments and parking assignments and people who are injured and need to, are walking with a walker, and he's being disconsiderate of them. He's become so arrogant. He's become like the Emperor Commodus.
He always was.
And he's going against the chairs. We had there's someone named
wait a minute. This is the guy who is supposed to help everybody get along.
Yeah, right. So even the chairs, even the people, even the Jasper gavel wearers are starting to say, well, they have a staffer who comes around when they have the meeting of the chairs. All the Jaspercrats are together in a little, 40 or 50 members in the leadership team. They have Dick Hinch sends he either goes out himself or he sends a staffer out to sign all the blue sheets to say this is what we're hearing. This is the result he wants out of committee. Hinch, of course, is another one of the rhinos, and he's a
Jasper Hinchman. He's also one of my state reps, by the way.
Oh man, get rid of that guy.
Well, he's on the hook now because the minute he became part of leadership, he was always kind of a wave guy. He was probably an 80-20 guy. But, a couple other guys, sometimes when there's more Democrats, they start to go left, and then when there's more Republicans, they go a little bit right. But there's no right now. It's a bunch of people battling against this Jaspercrat monolith. So he's gone into that, and I don't know why, but I haven't gone after him yet. But election season, there's plenty of time.
What I've seen, Bob Rowe, Steve Smith, who's chair of transportation, John Thol's one of the worst. John Thol has lied on the floor of the House a couple of times about life and death bills. Some of the same dishonest tactics that I've seen from some Democrat politicians. I'm seeing the same dishonesty from rhinos. And all you have up there is you either have your integrity or you're part of the little clique. And if they're part of the clique, they say, well, what do I need integrity for? And they'll just go up and they'll lie. And I have Democrats around me, and some of them complain. When we get a division vote, they'll vote independently. When it's a roll call, they have to do what Steve Shurtleff does. Steve Shurtleff stands up on a roll call and puts his thumb up. Every single Democrat, 160 of them in the House, every single one has to vote yes or they get thrown out. Every single one has to vote. When Steve Shurtleff stands up, House Democratic leader, and puts his thumb down, every single Democrat has to vote no.
Very power, isn't it? A lot of power in that.
Yeah, this is something that in the British parties is called the withdrawal of the whip. The whip has two meanings. One is they issue a whip saying you will vote for this, or you ought to vote for this, you should vote for this, or you will vote for this. But the other side of the coin, the withdrawal of the whip. If you are no longer submitted to the whip, you're effectively not a member of the party. You won't get any support. We're throwing you under the bus. And what you're saying is the Democrats actually do that. The Republicans don't understand the concept.
However, we're constantly talking to Democratic members who really dislike the amount of pressure coming down. And there's virtually, if you run as a Republican, you can represent your district. If you run as a Democrat, you have to represent Ray Buckley, George Soros. You have to do as you're told. If you run as a Republican, nothing doing. And so, of course, we have Democrats constantly griping about being told what to do, being called to the woodshed. We're hearing about that all the time. And we're saying, well, look, run as a Republican. Switch, become a Republican. Just put the letter out. Because you can vote with your district. You don't have to vote the way you're told. Now, if you're a Republican, you're not going to get into a leadership position. But, we see some of these people switch, and they go from... They go from like a 30% score with the HRA to like an 80% score just when they switch. We've had Democrats all over the country switch in legislatures and Congress, and it's because they take these Democrats and they strong-arm them. So if you never vote for a Democratic legislator, because all that's going to do is it just gives George Soros one more vote. You get zero representation from a Democrat. You get another George Soros delegate. That's literally all you're getting. You can say what you want. They'll say whatever. A lot of them just flat out lie to you. Others will just say, look, I have to vote the way I'm told. I don't, as a legislator, I vote for what I believe is in the best interest of the people of New Hampshire, and that's it. No compromises. That gives me an 88% score with HRA. And some others have 95% scores, just doing what they think is right for the people of New Hampshire.
I think the lesson to this, the moral to this lesson, is that Hudson has to primary. Get somebody out, a conservative, to primary.
Not just primary Jasper.
Well,
but
he's a
whether
big one.
you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, Constitutionalist, whatever, make sure if you have friends, neighbors, what have you in Hudson, Pelham, just vote against Jasper, even if it means putting in a Democrat. Just get rid of these guys. They're that bad. The amount of damage that he's done to New Hampshire is incredible. He is a bully.
Yeah. So what you're basically saying, as a quick interpretation of these two different parties in our legislature, at least, is if you get a Republican, it's a crapshoot. If you get a Democrat, it's just crap.
That's right.
No,
oh my, that's good.
I would say that some of my Democratic colleagues are good, honorable people, and on a division vote, they'll vote their conscience. But when they're under the thumb, they have to do as they're told on a roll call vote.
Which really is such a lack of character. I mean, ouch.
But they have to, or they're going to get voted out.
Well, I know, but you're saying that they're good, decent people, and maybe they are. God bless them. But you know what? If they, in their heart of hearts, knows that whatever they're facing, whatever bill they're looking at, is bad. And the only reason that they do not vote their heart of hearts is because somebody else might see it and vote them out. Man, that to me is just so unethical.
You and I are driven by conscience because we have standards and we have contempt for just the idea of voting for something that we know would cost jobs or get people killed or put the public in danger. We would never do that. But there are people out there who are just kind of like, well, if I don't do this, they're just going to replace me anyway.
Oh, goodness.
And that's just their thinking. They just don't have...
That is a lack of ethics and principles. What is wrong with declaring yourself to be an independent, like Bernie was supposedly an independent in Vermont, and voting your conscience, which, even if that's mostly Democrats.
When we look at Bernie Sanders' voting record versus Hillary Clinton's voting record, Hillary Clinton's voting record is terrible. It's authoritarian, whatnot. Bernie Sanders votes for internet privacy. He very rarely supports gun control. On civil liberties issues, on certain constitutional rights issues, once in a while he actually delivers a good vote. Hillary Clinton is just 100% pure insider establishment, authoritarian. She's terrible.
She is the Red Queen, as I have said frequently. So, like I said, I've said this a few times. A few years ago, I stumbled across a C-SPAN video of Sanders doing a town hall. I know why the guy gets elected. He freaking listens. He does a great job of constituent service. And the fact that you say he also votes his conscience rather than just his socialist leanings occasionally means that there is so much daylight between him and the other Democrats, even if he's a declared socialist.
Bernie Sanders wins among Republicans, Democrats, Independents, Libertarians, Constitutionalists. Every poll that I've seen, he leads in every area except low-information Democrats. The only people supporting Hillary Clinton are Democrats who have no idea what's going on. Media has told them, Hillary Clinton's your candidate. They're just going to show up and vote for her. And that's what they're going to do.
Now, I got no time for Bernie's overall policies, eat the rich, feed the poor kind of thing. But the fact is, the guy has something. And what the guy has is he's sincere and he does constituent service. And that is the difference. He listens to the people, whereas Hillary takes prepared questions.
He's been a member of AARP for 20 years? Is that part of the...
Doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt. He's old.
Yes, he is.
A lot older.
Well, that makes him a socialist even more so if you're a member
He's an old socialist,
AARP. I refuse to join.
AARP used to lean Republican a little bit.
Yeah, now they don't. Well, ever since Obamacare, they could change.
Well, with the doc fix is going to be a disaster for Medicare. Obama is trying to turn Medicare into Medicaid, and no one wants to be on Medicaid because you can't choose your own doctor, you can't choose your own hospital.
Because you have a higher percentage of dying because you're on Medicaid? How's that? It's a big one.
Yeah, because you're going to die.
You're literally better off with nothing than
right.
Medicaid.
How sad is that?
And 60%
Please
of
join our
people
program. Yeah, you're going to die anyway. Might as well die sooner.
If I have to pay a high price and a high deductible, why don't I just take a chance and pay directly for
No kidding. How sad is that?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Before government got into healthcare back in the 60s and 70s, healthcare was affordable. Almost
Well,
even fast food
well,
restaurants.
go
Even
back-
fast food restaurants in the 50s and 60s were offering medical coverage, and if you didn't get it from your work, it was available on the open market for a few bucks a month, $10, $15, $20 a month for
Right.
health care.
But go back another 20 years before that, and the government wasn't in healthcare at all. You bought your own insurance, and it was insurance.
Yeah.
And you paid for your regular visits to the
All right,
doctor.
we got to go. I want to thank everybody for coming in. Of course, we'll be back next week. Same old song and dance? No, we'll have a different song and a different dance. Same theme, same principles, same values. That's what this is about. This is Grok Talk. Thanks for tuning in. We will talk to you next week. Make sure you tune in because we'll be here. See ya.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now at the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Hi, this is Rich Gerard, host of Gerard at Large in the Morning, the Manchester area's only locally owned, locally operated, focused, and interested riveting radio show, heard live every Monday through Friday from 6 to 9 on 90.7 FM WLMW New Hampshire Family Radio, and available 24/7 live or archived at gerardatlarge.com. Be sure to tune in.
The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers and not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, this station, or anyone else for that matter. From the CNHT studios in Concord, New Hampshire, just a few blocks from the New Hampshire State House, this is
Grok Talk.
Is the show really over?
Grok